we're going to get started by creating a button. Let's go on to how we implement the canvas. So first you need to do is create a separate class that will inherit the view class, because once you have inheritance from the view class, you can draw onto its canvas. So my view, and it extends view. Now it's going to say, oh, there's a problem here, right? Whereas we don't know what view is. That's good. And this is going to say, where's the constructor? So just hover your mouse over it and it'll tell you what you need. Just click on the first option. So we have our constructor now. Pretty straightforward. Let's add some properties to make this useful. So some properties we will want. First one, if you're going to draw with anything that is not a bitmap, you're going to need paint. So I'm just going to cover a little bit about paints. Paints are very simple. They have a width and they have a color, and these can be all changed very simply, and you use them to draw particular things. When you're using bitmaps, though, you don't really want to use a paint because it gets in the way, and a bitmap is normally the image that you want it to be. So bitmap, we'll call it image, and it's like, what's a bitmap? Import the bitmap for us. Thank you. Okay, so now's the part where you need your resources. So what I had done before this is I went online and I found the pictures I'm going to use for this. So I have some JPEGs here, or some PNGs, and these are the ones I'm going to paint to my canvas. The thing is, you want to take these pictures and put them in every single folder that says drawable on it inside your resource folder, your res folder, inside your project, which is inside your workspace. Once that is there, we can import it into our bitmaps. And you say, what were the resources? Oh, get resources, and and then you pass the ID, which is already in for you. We're gonna pass. What do we want? We want to do a background, very nice background. Okay, so let's gonna draw the background. Let's instantiate our paints now. That's good to go. So we're ready to draw on the canvas now. What you need to do is override the onDraw method, and that's where you can draw on the canvas for the view. Click, go to source, then go to override implement methods right there. It'll give you a set of methods you can override from your extending class you're extending, and we do onDraw. That's the one we want. And okay, there we go, and it gives you everything you need. So it's overriding the onDraw. And notice now it already has a canvas that's going to be passed. That's the canvas you're going to be playing around with. See, it's right there. Now look at all these things you can draw. You can draw an arc, you can draw an ARGB, which is simply just a color. Or you can draw a bitmap, which we're going to create a temporary bitmap. Bitmap temp. So it has a bitmap, and then that takes that resource right there. And now it's equal to this, but instead it's the canvas width and the canvas height. So that should be good, and the reason why these were messed up so badly is because I messed those up. The first parameter is always going to be the horizontal, and the second is always going to be the height. So let's run that again, see what our emulator has to say for us. And there you go. So we get hello world right in the middle, and we get to see this beautiful picture perfectly spaced to the canvas size. And you're saying, okay, that's pretty cool. That's a nice way to draw a canvas or a nice picture. But what if I wanted to, let's say, do an animation? You need a couple of variables, xy, which are going to be the actual position, intx, which is going to give you the velocity, the speed, inty, the speed in the y direction, x, the direction now of y, either negative or positive, and this same deal, but with y. Oh, yeah, we'll just leave these as 0, 0. So x equals 0 right there. Okay. And we want our directions to be positive right now. So we'll just have those equal 1. And our velocities now, to make things interesting, we're going to have the velocities be slightly random. So they're going to span from numbers 1 to 5. So that we can get some interesting paths drawn between, well, by our little image that's going to be floating around. And the image we're going to have float around is the launcher. So this is our background. We want an image which is going to be bouncing around. So this bitmap image is going to be our launcher icon. Very simple. This is ready to go. So question is, how are we going to get it to move? So in the onDraw, we draw our background, which is good. Now we want to go and draw our image. So we're gonna draw it here, just like the last one. So we're gonna do the placement for this thing in its middle position. So when you do the x value minus the width over 2, and the y value minus the height over 2, it'll actually position it over the center of the x and y that you're expecting, so that it's actually centered there. So we have this and no paints. Okay, so that should be good. So now the statement that determines whether or not it should bounce. So if the image is out with blah 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 blah, if the right side touches the canvas boundary, or the left side touches the left canvas boundary, then we want its direction to change. Right? So that's very simple. Since it's positive direction, or direction to change, we just do a negative number. Same thing here. Switch direction. Times equals -1. And there we go. One last thing, which is to determine the position, the new position. The position is always what? It's an increment of its speed. The speed is x value, the x int x times the direction. Well, that's its velocity there. And then same thing here. So that's gonna make it bounce around. One last step. The thing is with view is that it only draws once unless you tell it, hey, you know what, this is invalid, draw again. That's why you have to pass it the invalidate method. Right here, this tells it, hey, you know what, you gotta redraw this whole thing one more time. The thing is now, if we didn't put these variables in, it would look the exact same. But since we have these x and y's changing, and the x is in here, it's gonna change the movement and positioning of the ball. We'll reset the position instead of 50-50 so it doesn't get stuck in between itself. Try that again. Alright, so here's the button, and we have our thing moving very, very slowly. So as you can see, this does animation, but it's very boring.